4.3 Abuja, the station that plays every song you know. Is 37 minutes into the 12 o'clock hour, which means that it is way past time for NASS in Focus. And so we are just going to dive right into it. My name is Faith, by the way, and I have in the studios to have a conversation with me on the activities of NASS, the elections, and everything in between. The senator representing Kaduna Central, Senator Shehu Sani. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you.
And welcome to, the show.
Thank you for having me here.
All right. I mean, you have had a very, very interesting stay in the National Assembly, basically. So we're going to get into that very shortly. But let's start with what is going on, in the National Assembly. I know that just yesterday you had presented the development bill for the Southeast, and the one for the Northwest has been passed already. Yeah, Northeast has been passed. So, I mean, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well,
because it seems like, different regions are having development, bills now. I mean, what's your thought on that?
well, first of all, the idea of having a development commission for the Northeast was precipitated or informed by the reality of that geopolitical zone in respect to the insurgency, the violence and destruction that has attended lives in the Northeast in the last 8 to 9 years. The idea of having a commission is to engineer redevelopment in the region, resettlement, and restore social and economic infrastructure to get the region back on track. Now, senators from the Southeast raised an issue on the problems, the peculiar problems faced by the people of the Southeast, the Igbo-speaking region of Nigeria, with taking cognizance of the aftermath of the Civil War and the ecological problem that part of Nigeria has been faced with. And they were able to sell the idea to many of us, though there were issues that were raised by parliamentarians from other sections of the country. I was the first to identify with them on the need to have a commission for the Southeast. And I spoke profoundly and eloquently on the floor of the Senate that the Southeast need a commission to address the ecological problem, to also address issues related to marginalization, especially what has happened in the last 40, 45 years. So, all in all, the two commissions, that of the Northeast and that of the Southeast, has a lifespan of 10 years. After 10 years, they are expected to be wind down, and having expected that the issues that were raised about what had happened will have been addressed by that time. So I share the belief, and I express solidarity and support. And likewise, other senators from all parts of Nigeria also spoke, but we had a bit of some issues with the bill. There were aspects of the bill that said a certain percentage of the ecological fund that should be due to the state should be given to the commission, but that was addressed. It said, now we said, since the ecological fund is directly in the office of Mr. President, in which states can apply and be granted. So we said that a percentage, maybe 1 or 2% of the total sum of the ecological fund be given to the commission. So it is all about rehabilitation, development and addressing the gaps, the lacuna of development that has existed in the last 45 years.
Yeah, but what about for the Northwest? Because I mean, I'm seeing reports about a bill seeking the establishment of a Northwest Development Commission also being introduced in the Senate. So now we have for the Northeast, we have Niger Delta, commission that has already been established, and then now Southeast and the Northwest as well. What do you have to say about the one for the Northwest?
Well, you see, since the establishment of the Northeast Development Commission and now the Southeast Development Commission, there is that tendency of other geopolitical zones coming up to justify why they also need a commission. But I think we should not really follow the issue. The Northeast is a region of Nigeria that has been faced with terrorism, violence, and displacements of millions of people, and hundreds of thousands of lives have been rendered useless in the last 9 years. And also the Southeast have a genuine reason to demand for a commission. But if it reaches a point whereby all the geopolitical zones will have a commission, then we will simply be dealing with something else.
Because it looks like that's where it's going. If the Northwest has introduced one, there's nothing stopping the Southwest tomorrow from saying we also need a commission, and if the one for the Northwest passes, I mean, what argument will be there to say, no, this one cannot come up as well for the Southwest?
Well, I can tell you that I had senators from the Northwest, that is my region, saying they want to come up with a bill, and I also had somebody, a senator from the Southwest, particularly Lagos, he said he wants to come up with a bill for the Southwest Development Commission, and I believe North Central will also do it, and then now we will be having a plethora of development commissions. But we shouldn't, like I've said, downplay the reality of the crisis, the violence and destructions that were in the Northeast and the Southeast.
In the Southeast. Let me connect that to the issue of restructuring, because I would like to get your take on restructuring as well. There are some people who argue for restructuring as being a way of maybe let's go back to regions, or let's be able to focus on regions. There are people, of course, who argue for it about devolution of powers and resource control and things like that. If you're having different development commissions, for different regions, in a way, is that not giving a cry to the idea that maybe this is tending towards restructuring, or lending a voice to the restructuring cry that's been around for a while?
Well, restructuring is a wholesale approach to Nigerian political, economic, and social challenges. I see this development commission as a superficial attempt to paper over restructuring issues. But we must tell ourselves the truth, that restructuring is more or less used as a campaign slogan by politicians and political parties.
So you don't believe in restructuring?
I am 100% believer in restructuring as an activist that have fought for democracy and have been in the vanguard of it. But despite me holding political office, but I can tell you that Nigerians have been deceived by the word restructuring by those who always bring it about each time the election is near. The ruling political party, the All Progressive Congress,
your former party,
yes, has said they were going to restructure, and they took power in 2015, and they only remember restructuring when it is 1 year into an election. They set up a committee led by the Kaduna Central government and came out with a report which at the end of the day there was virtually no mechanisms and roadmap for its implementation. We are going to an election in the next few months.
Yes.
And when elections took place and new political office holders are sworn into office, ministers are appointed, then restructuring will not be the main issue in the first year.
But don't you see that, if you're looking at it as maybe an election, tool or a campaign tool, what it means is that, well, the playbook has been studied. It worked in 2015. What stops it from working again in 2019?
Well, the whole thing is that the governing elites are not interested in implementing restructuring.
So you think the PDP is just using it for a campaign strategy as well?
Well, the PDP has been in power for 16 years. Why couldn't they have restructured? They refuse to restructure. So they can they restructure now? I don't think so. The APC have been in power for 3.5 years. If they wanted to restructure, it should have been the first week of taking over. That would have been a major issue. So the whole idea is, let us use restructure as a mask, and then we win, and then other issues come up, and then that's all.
So what is the hope for Nigerians where restructuring is concerned? Are you saying that it doesn't seem like that's ever going to happen?
Well, the only way restructuring can happen is for Nigerians and civil society to continue to apply pressure on people holding political office, that must be implemented. In the first, second, third week of coming to office, there must be the setting of mechanism for restructuring. But what I want you to understand is that the political establishment benefits from the existing structure of Nigeria, politically and economically. There are people who are part of the establishment now who will not like restructuring, and they are very influential. A restructuring that will dissolve the borders of their states and merge them into one. They would not like to lose their political terrain.
Like that. But let me ask you this.
A restructuring
yes,
that will make it impossible for them to come to Abuja and get money and go back to their states. They will not like it. A restructuring that will limit, curtail, and also bring a stop to the economic benefits they derive from now. They will certainly
not like it. But the president has argued a few times, he always mentioned a few times that, well, if you're talking about restructuring, as much as you're saying this administration has done it, the National Assembly has the bulk of the work when it comes to restructuring. Why has the National Assembly not done anything? I mean, there are bills being introduced now by members of the National Assembly. Why hasn't a bill been introduced, about restructuring? Why hasn't that been an issue in the National Assembly?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, except if I'm wrong, the president has never been a pro-restructuring man. He has spoken in many fora, openly and unambiguously, that he is not for restructuring, and they don't even understand what restructuring is all about. So here you have his party purporting to be pro-restructuring, and the president holding a very strong position, saying he's opposed to it. So where will restructuring be? And if they win the next elections, he's still going to be president from 19 to 20.
I'm talking about the National Assembly.
The National Assembly cannot do restructuring alone. This is, if you have to restructure Nigeria, there are constitutional issues that you need to take into cognizance. And again, even the membership of National Assembly and the structure of National Assembly benefits from the status quo as it exists now.
Because
somebody there could establish if you are going to restructure, if you are going to restructure, you will reach a point where you have to bring an end to bicameral legislature and have one. And how many senators and members of House of Reps will be ready to sacrifice their mandate for you to have a camera legislature. And how many people there will do the bidding of restructuring when they knew their state governors were not in support of it? I want you to understand how people get into National Assembly. Many people in the National Assembly represent their sponsors and their governors or their political allegiance and alliances. And whatever decisions they are going to take there will be reflected on what is the pointer for the other side. So as far as we are concerned now, if restructuring has to take place, it is something which will involve leadership of National Assembly, the executive branch, the judiciary, political leaders across the country. Let us now come to a certain hall with one intention. We have decided to restructure Nigeria, set up committees, come out with a report, and then we adopt it. And if we decided to restructure this country, we will all have to append our signature that the existing structures will naturally be dissolved. And if that is done, then we can move to the next step. But if you don't have the judiciary, you don't have the National Assembly, you don't have the executive, and you don't have leaders of civil society, you cannot achieve this. Yes.
Okay. We've talked essentially about restructuring, but let's move on to a few other issues because of time. Let's talk about the electoral bill that the president has refused accent to. I did see your tweet about it, calling him out that you benefited from the process and that you're not following through the process. I want to hear your thoughts on it right here. His reasons, because he did sending his reasons for not appending his signature. He was talking about the fact that this close to the election, he doesn't think that he should be signing a new electoral bill because there might be some sort of confusion or anarchy or something. Those were his reasons, and of course he listed some drafting issues as well. What do you have to say about his reasons that he gave for not signing it?
Well, it is unfortunate that in the 21st century, you can still have people opposed to the application of technologies that will aid and assist in having a transparent, credible, and clear elections that we can all testify that the best has been done. If the president continue to refuse to sign this bill, then he will live with the suspicion and he's going to live with the blame of what comes out of the 2019 election.
But what about his reasons for refusing to sign it? You don't see any credibility to those reasons?
I don't see any credibility to that, in the very sense that he and the ruling party were beneficiaries of the card reader, the PVC, the everything that you can think of. And if you look at the statement that came yesterday from some sections of the ruling party, was that if you adopt the provisions and the recommendations of the electoral bill, that there is a tendency of the opposition deploying Russian hackers to tamper with the computers and the electronic system of INEC in order for them to get victory. And as coming from the ruling party, I knew that is the fear. That is the fear. What the president has said will sell to the minds of many. But the fear simply has to do with the fact that if we have the deployment of all the technologies needed, then there is a limit to what you can do. There are two things that are being used now to rig elections in some of the states that had by-elections: vote buying and the use of security agencies. Now, if you say you are not going to transmit result from the polling booth to the collation centers electronically, you're going to do it manually. And you should understand rules and the collation center. You should have yourself to blame. If people now can send messages by WhatsApp, by telegram, by email, by all these things, why can't we transmit election result?
Let me ask you about, because you're talking about the issue of the technology and everything, because INEC is still saying that they're going to still use the card readers. They're still going to go out with the technology. There's nothing that stops them from doing it. And that, and the argument that, some people in the ruling party will put forward is that, well, the one for 2015, the election was adjudged to be, to an extent, credible, to a large extent. So what is wrong with the law that worked then that also didn't stop INEC from using the electronic voting system? And INEC did say that they're still going to use it, and INEC said they're still not going to use incidence forms now. So what difference does it make?
So if there was no difference, he should sign the bill. So because there's going to be difference. So my position is that sign the bill and remove any suspicion about any attempt by the ruling party to tamper with the elections.
With the elections.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the issue of the appointment of the president, because he did send in names to be confirmed for the ICPC and the EFCC, and there was the issue that it seemed like it was lopsided. You were part of the people in the Senate who was also against the confirmation at that instant, because it seemed to be tilted towards certain regions and not some other regions. Can you throw more light on that?
Yeah, well, why are we called a federal republic? The word federal is an acceptance that we are a nation of diversity. And we have decided to live within the concept and the idealism of federalism. Now, it is in line with that we have what we call Federal Character Commission. And this Character Commission was established to monitor and ensure compliance with that concept of federalism. So we cannot apply federal character in the morning and in the evening. We apply merit. We must apply federal character in all political appointments, in employment, and in representation. You cannot bring the list of persons to be confirmed for positions in an established institutions like a commission, and then we check the list and we find out that a section of the country were not represented. Particularly the southeastern part of Nigeria. If you don't have the southeastern part of Nigeria, it's the something as you don't have the northwestern part of Nigeria where it comes from, and we cannot append our signature to that. We have to return it back to you, and especially anti-corruption bodies. And there is already a perception of nepotism, of clannishness, as it exists now on the government side. So if we now accept to confirm nominees while a section of the country is not represented, then that becomes, we are simply becoming part of the story.
Part of the story.
Yeah.
There's so much to cover and so little time, but I want to ask you this. Do you think that, at any point, the National Assembly will seek to override the president on the electoral, bill?
Well, I am one of those who strongly support the electoral bill and insist on the president he should sign. But at this very time, we are in a 50-50 situation. There are a lot of obstacles to vetoing the president. The first is attendance. Many senators and members of House of Reps now don't attend sittings because they are busy in campaigns. So you can have problem of quorum. And secondly, the numbers. The APC and the PDP are still battling each other, which one is the majority now.
Yes.
And for you to veto the president, We need an overwhelming majority, and that is difficult. So we're at a certain point now whereby if the president wants to remove Saraki or Dogara, it is so impossible for him to do that because he doesn't have the numbers in National Assembly. And if Saraki and Dogara and the leadership of True House wants to impeach the president or override the president, it's also going to be very much impossible to do it because the numbers are there. So it is about numbers, it's also about mood, and also about time. Now, the attendance in both chambers is very low.
Can I go into that?
Yes.
Interesting times. I want to talk about, your relationship with the Kaduna State Governor, and you're moving to the PRP,
Yes.
which was a very, very surprising move because it seemed to a large extent that you were not going to leave the APC, because at some point you said you were not going to leave when some of your colleagues were defecting, and then finally you did, and of course it came after a lot of name exchange for this or name not submitted and things like that. so let's talk about that. I have been following it, definitely. It's been very interesting to watch. So finally now you're in the PRP. So let's talk about your relationship with the Kaduna State Governor and your move finally to PRP.
Well, I am in the PRP because it is a party that represents my own socialist political ideology, a revolutionary tradition in the North. Aminu Kano was one of the persons very close to my father, and Balare Musa is something. And it has always been the history of my family to be on the political left. So they were in the northern element Progressive Union, the First Republic, and the Second Republic. My parents were in the PRP. And when we joined the APC, and then there were issues raised, my colleagues in the National Assembly, many of them said they are going back home. And we all decided we were going to leave the APC, and they were going back home. So they went back home, and while I was home, their home was PDP. And that was not my home because I have never been a PDP member. I do understand many of them were in PDP before they joined the APC. So my own home is PRP, and I'm in that home now. So many of them wanted me to join the PDP. But I don't want to move from one foster home to another, or one orphanage of APC to another orphanage of PDP. So we are in the PRP. PRP is a party, even in Second Republic, that's only present in Kaduna and Kano, and we are okay with it.
What do you think your chances are?
My chances are very strong. I'm contesting for the Senate. Well, we are up against two parties, the PDP and the APC. But the APC and the PDP were parties that are founded in the shape of Goliath, and our party was founded in the spirit of David. And that is why we're going to win.
That's an interesting analogy. So, about your relationship with the Kaduna State Governor?
I have no relationship with him. He is a man who we only happen to be in the same political party. And we differ politically and ideologically. He was part of the PDP whom that is insulting and abusing for these years. In the last 16 years of the PDP in power, he spent 13 years as a member. And now he is criticizing them for destroying Nigeria. A former minister of Federal Capital under PDP and also a chairman of Bureau, or whatever they call the Bureau of Public Enterprise. So he came from the political establishment. And that is the crisis of the APC. People come from different backgrounds, finding themselves under one shield, and now finding it difficult to go along. I can say that the unity of the APC ended from the victory in 2015, and now problems started between the executive and legislature, between the party and legislature, between the party and the executive, and at the state level. And if I can borrow the words of Itagiwa, it became a home of confusion. And so the governor implements anti-people policies that are capitalist in nature, that are self-serving. He is a man who has built his reputation around the person of the president. I, as a person, yes, I know you want to stop me. Okay.
Yeah, I am because of time. No, because of time. Because
we have to run. Uncomfortable?
Time.
Okay.
Because you keep talking about you being a socialist. I want to ask you, there are two questions so I want you to answer almost simultaneously, even though they're quite different. One of them is I want you to talk about the Boko Haram fight, how you think that has come, because I know that you had been very invested in, that even before you got into office. And then also, you talk about being a socialist and about how the Kaduna State Governor is more capitalist. What do you think about the social investment programs of this present administration that some people have categorized as being more socialist in nature and argue that might not be that beneficiary? So when you look at things like trader money and market money and things like that. So let's look at these two questions very quickly.
First of all, I would say that if you are talking about the social investment, well, it's a good idea to help traders, marketers with some capital to be able to start up their business. It's a good program. But the issues raised about it, why has it not been done until when it comes close to election? Going to the market in an election season and be sharing money can hardly be differentiated from an attempt to buy the conscience and the votes of people. But
they will say that it's a 3-tier program. They started with Empower. They started with market money, and then this is like supposed to be another phase of it, which is the trader money, which is more popular because it takes going to the market, but they've done the others.
The Empower is a good idea, but we are working to investigate to make sure that it is not politicized.
And what about the school feeding program as well?
School feeding program is also a good idea. I commend them for that.
But you have a problem with trader money because it's so close to elections.
But if trader money is shared to only traders on the side of the ruling party, and Empower is only empowering people who are on the side of the ruling party, then it simply becomes...
But they say that is not what is obtainable, that they give to everybody.
Yeah, if that is the case, we are working to
investigate it.
Next few days, we'll get the report.
Okay, yes. Absolutely. Let's talk about Boko Haram, the fights against insurgency.
Yeah, the insurgency has become, in the last 8 to 9 years, a big business. People are cashing on it. Government officials, the NGOs, security agencies have made big bucks out of this insurgency, and people have been killed every day. If we want to bring insurgency to an end, there's a need to bring, to have the religious leaders from the north, community leaders, security agencies, political leaders, to sit down and come out with a roadmap on how to end these things once and for all. And there are also individuals that started issues of negotiation, and they have done very well. But there are disconnects along the way, and I believe that should be addressed so that we can have peace and then restore order to that part of the country.
Okay. Because I'm really rushing now. Let's talk about the 2019 budget. The president has written that he's going to come present, the 2019 budget. Of course, there's argument that, the 2018 budget has not even performed over 20%, and the Senate, as the Senate has the time to even study the medium-term expenditure framework, not to talk of now, looking at the 2019 budget.
Well, he is going to present the budget as planned on Wednesday, and we'll be expecting him to do that, and then from there we get to work. But the unfortunate thing is that it's going to come at a time when both chambers will be very busy for the next election. So we may either find ourselves trying to rush in to pass the budget, or the budget will be delayed because of the elections. But in all, I believe that not the last budgets have not been fully implemented to satisfaction. And this is the last one as far as this tenure of this administration is concerned. So mistakes that were made, there will be an opportunity now to address them. But the time is very short. So we will have to see the content of the project. And then looking at the time frame, it's certainly going to be challenging.
It is going to be very challenging. One last question. You were the one who, raised the issue of the 13.5 million allowance, for members of the Senate. And since then, you had different senators come out to say, oh no, that isn't really what it is. I want to know your position on that now. Has it changed? Are you still, of that opinion? Okay, that this is what comes in when it comes to the allowance of the senators.
I've never heard of any senator that contradicted what I said.
Oh, I have had. I've interviewed a number of them.
What did he say? Did he say
a number of
more
them,
than that
actually.
or less than that?
They have said that, that figure, they cannot confirm that figure.
Did they say we were given less or more?
They refuse to confirm the figure.
So you can see, maybe I'm the only person. My name is Shehu Sani.
Who receives 30.5 million?
Yes, but it's not about undermining everyone, but removing the veil of secrecy and the kind of ways which people are viewing legislatures. And now, by my disclosure, nobody is in doubt of how much legislatures are adding. But it should also challenge the executive, the ministers, the president and the governors around to also tell us how much they are
How much they earn as well.
Yes.
And how much they get in security votes.
Well, that is going to be very difficult.
Very difficult.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Senator
I only
Shehu
heard
Sani.
of one senator who said that money is too small.
Oh, a number of them have said it is not even enough, that there's so much to do. We don't have time to get into that. I would have loved to break it down a little, but we don't have time. The news headlines come up very, very shortly. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Senator Shehu Sani. It was great having you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, stay tuned. You're listening to